Welcome to Tulsa Titans, another episode. We're highlighting local professionals who are making a difference. I'm so excited. I've got Jill Donovan here. She is the CEO and founder of Rustic Cuff. She is an overcomer. She is a giver, an attorney. What you actually taught at TU for a while, Jill, and I know you wrote a book, so you're an author. I'd give the kind of whole background on everything that I've read about you, but I think it'd take up the whole podcast. So I wanted to dive in really quickly, if that's okay. And can we just talk about your journey from a professional law career into what is now Rustic Cuff? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Hi, Kellen. Thank you for the invite to be here. I'm excited.
I am too.
That I'm one of your first guests. That's really exciting.
I'm excited. You said that you give your time.
Yeah. Well, just to be in on this in the beginning, what a wonderful thing you're doing amongst all the other millions of things you're doing to make an impact. Okay, so my story of going from a law career to where I am now started really back when I was younger with this desire at 10 years old to start a new hobby every year until I found the thing that I was called to do. Because I thought if I just start something brand new every year, I'll assess it at the end of the year. And if that's what I'm supposed to do, I'll know. Because I'll want to keep going. And so I did that. I started at 10, and every single year for 365 days, I tried something new. And it varied from musical instruments to learning languages to going to law school was one of my hobbies, because I really never had a desire to be an attorney, but law school sounded like fun. And it really was fun, but it was not a one-year hobby. It turned out to be a few years. And I continued that and realized that I was not called to be an attorney, but now I'd spent all of this money to go to law school, and now this was my career. And so I'm sitting in the middle of this career realizing, excuse me, that this is not what I was called to do. I loved people, but I didn't love all the details that came along with being an attorney. And I did divorce law and family law, and that's really not what I was called to do.
No, that sounds like it'd be tough.
Oh, it was, it's like meeting really amazing people during the worst times of their life. And that's where you come into their life. And it's hard, it's tricky. It's a really tricky, that was what I started off right when I graduated from law school, was right into divorce law. So I knew I wasn't called to do that, but I had paid all the money, like I said, and this is where I was. Well, I wound up getting asked to go back to my law school to teach. And I got on board with that because I loved teaching. So I did that for 8 years. Well, during that time, I decided to keep going forward with my hobbies. And so one of my hobbies one year was to get tickets to the Oprah show, which doesn't really sound like a hobby, but it is a hobby when you have to call so many times. So dialing a phone became my hobby. And it did not happen the first year. And I'm a little superstitious, so I can't end a hobby until it actually, I either have a recital or somehow it comes to fruition. And so I tried the second year and the third year. On the fourth year, I finally decided that there had to be another way to get to sit in the show. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to go see Oprah was because Oprah loved what she did, and I did not love what I did. And I wanted to be around somebody that felt like they were in the center of their calling. And so I thought, if I just sit in the audience of Oprah, maybe I will take some things away by being around somebody who is truly excellent at what she does. And finally, I decided to look for another way to get in the audience because the tickets would just fill up. I mean, it's easier to win the Powerball when it's at 900 million than it was to get a ticket to the Oprah show. And although I would have rather won the Powerball at 900 million instead of a ticket to the Oprah show, but that's another story. So I got online and decided to just research different ways that you can get tickets. And when I got online, on the Oprah website, it said, do you want to be on the show? If so, here's 5 things. If one of them fits, send us an email. And I thought, one of these is going to fit my life somehow. It's going to bend and twist to fit my life. And sure enough, the very first thing fit without even bending it. It said, are you a regifter? If so, tell us your stories. We're doing a show on etiquette and you might be able to be a guest. And I thought, that's way more than I'd ever wanted. I just wanted to be in the audience. So I wrote Oprah and I told her these really funny stories, how I had been caught regifting. I grew up with a mom and dad that believed you didn't need to go to the store to buy gifts for your friends. You needed to go to their closet and use the gifts that they had in there that they had received from their friends that they didn't want. So it was just in my nature to be a regifter. I had this amazing regifting closet, and I sat down and I wrote Oprah a letter. Didn't tell anybody about it. And I told how I had just gotten caught a few times. I'd given something to my mother-in-law and I'd forgotten, sorry, she had given something to me. I forgot. She gave it to me, put it in my gift closet when it was her birthday. I wrapped it up, forgetting she had given it to me, and gave it back to her. And just, that was really fresh. And I wrote that story. And within 2 hours, the Oprah show called back and said, we loved your email. We want to fly out to Tulsa tomorrow and film your gift closet. And I was like, I mean, for 4 years, I had just been trying to get a ticket in the audience. And now they're flying to Tulsa to film my gift closet. So I ran over to Utica Square because the closet was looking kind of thin. And I bought everything that I could to fill up the closet, knowing I was going to take it back the next day. Because I didn't have any money. I paid credit, used my credit card, bought all the stuff, filled up the gift closet. They flew to Tulsa. It was a funny interview because it was just kind of a funny topic. And then I went back and took all the stuff back, which I felt really guilty about, but I got over it. I mean, that was really good advertising that those stores got. So turns out they loved the video and they wanted to fly me, and they wanted to fly my husband out the next 2 days later or the next day to Chicago. It happened just like fast, and to sit on the front row, and not to sit on the stage, but just to sit in the front row as they played my video. And I was like, I'm going to quit the practice of law, quit teaching, and I'm going to find my calling. This is it. This is the moment. I could not believe I was going to be sitting on the front row at the Oprah Winfrey Show, and they were going to air a funny video from my house. So we fly out to Tulsa, and they said, you can't tell in your stories. You just are going to say thank you when Oprah thanks you. She'll say, thank you for being here, Jill. And you say, thank you. And I was like, I don't care. I don't have to say anything, but this is going to be my moment that I discover my calling. I know that sounds weird, Kellen, but I just had this feeling that this was part of what I was supposed to do. And right before the show started, right before, the producer came up to me and she said, there's been a change of plans. You're going to go sit on the stage with Oprah and you get to tell your stories. And I thought, now within 48 hours, 48 hours before that, I was sitting in my office, not enjoying what I was doing at all. And now I'm sitting on the stage with Oprah. Like, it was just a weird, surreal moment. And she sits down next to me. And then before you know it, literally, it's all happened within minutes, very fast. They aired the clip. And then I was thinking, okay, how do I segue into my stories, my funny stories? And she said, Jill, what do you think of what you just watched on this video? Tell us about it. And I started to talk, and she said, let's go ask the etiquette experts that we have today and see what they think about what you're doing, about your regifting.
So they had a professional panel on the show?
They had 2 girls on there on the other side of the stage who were really sweet before the show. They looked over at me and they're like, we love your shoes. And I thought, oh gosh, you felt like you're best friends with these 2 girls. Just the sweetest.
You were prepared to say thank you.
I was prepared. Yes, that was it. That's all. I was just going to say thank you. And now I'm up here sitting on the couch with Oprah with 2 etiquette experts, and Oprah decides to throw it over to them. And I had Googled the night before, what do etiquette experts think about regifting? And, they said, as long as you're not lying, straight out lying. And I wasn't lying about it. I just didn't tell people where the gifts came from originally.
Right.
And being an attorney, you can bend anything. And no disrespect to all the attorneys who bend things in amazing ways. So these etiquette experts looked at me with just smiling. I mean, they had just said they loved my shoes, and they were smiling, and through their smiles, they said to Oprah, we think that Jill it's just tacky, and it's rude what she's doing. She needs to give that whole gift closet to Goodwill. And they're still smiling. They said, it's just wrong. It's distasteful. And I literally thought that I was being punked. Now, the younger generation won't know what the punked. I thought Ashton Kutcher was going to come out and say, just kidding. We love what you're doing. Keep doing it. It's resourceful. And they didn't stop. They kept going. And I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach, like you really did not see that coming. The deep dive from the highest mountain peak that I was on, sitting on the stage, to this low valley of being embarrassed that they didn't like, not just what I was doing, but they didn't appear to like me. And it was going to play to 20 million people. And a lot goes through your mind at that moment. But one of the biggest things that went through my mind, the 12 minutes that this was happening on stage, was, why would God take me to this really high mountain of excitement and anticipation for something, only to go to the lowest valley of just disappointment? I can handle embarrassment, but it was the disappointment of this hope that I had for something really exciting. Why would he do that? I don't understand, because why wouldn't he just have me in the audience? I was happy with that.
Well, you were experienced probably the highest high you'd ever had, and then the lowest minutes afterwards, right? So you're balancing emotions at the same time.
I actually would have been completely fine without the high and the low. I was thrilled just to be in the audience and say thanks. That was enough for me.
Well, I know everybody's super interested, the Oprah show, right? They want to hear about the Oprah show, and Oprah's done so much. Yeah. And really, when I looked at your story, there's so much to the fact that so-called experts told you one thing, but here you are now. And so what I want to get into is, okay, you're on Oprah, you're balancing all these emotions. You have professionals that tell you to never do what you're doing again.
Yeah.
But now you own one of the biggest companies in Tulsa doing what you were doing.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, Kellen, I left the show that day, and when you're that disappointed, you don't just bounce back the next afternoon. Because what happened is it wound up airing 3 times that year. So each to 20 million people each time. And I was reminded of just this huge disappointment. And I left the show that day and said to my husband, in a very weird moment of clarity, I said, I don't know why that would happen, but I have a feeling it's for a much bigger purpose that I will know someday why that had to happen. Because I could have had just 15 minutes of fun, but if I didn't have that pain, it wouldn't have taken me on the journey. So I went home, emptied the whole closet, and I said, I'm never opening this closet again. I don't want to do hobbies or watch Oprah again. If that got me to this point of embarrassment. And 5 years later, 5 years went by where I sort of just turned everything off. I lived and I raised my daughters, or we raised our daughters, and I just turned that creative side and the hoping side off. I just didn't want to hope for something anymore. And I knew the key to this was going to be, it's going to sound crazy, but forgiving these girls. Oprah was fine. She was great. It had nothing to do with her, but forgiving these girls who I thought stole something from me that was supposed to be mine, this high mountaintop experience. And they stole that from me. So 5 years later, I was up, it was like 2:00 in the morning. And I just said, I called them Canada because they were from Canada. I just nicknamed them Canada, like the whole country. So I was mad at the entire
Canada.
Yeah. And I just sat up and I said, I forgive Canada. The minute I did that, the minute I released them from this debt that I felt like they owed me, I felt like I was no longer owned by something, by this feeling that somebody was a dream stealer in my life. And it lifted off of me 5 years. And it could have happened earlier, but I just held on to it. It lifted off of me. And I opened that closet for the first time in 5 years and said, God, would you give me an idea that I can fill this closet back up with and regift it myself? Like something I can make to regift. And I went and sat at the computer 2 o'clock in the morning, was so excited. I was alive for the first time, really alive. And I had been collecting bracelets, cuffs for years and years, just different countries or cities I would go to. It was some people buy shot glasses. I bought cuffs when I would go on trips. And this idea dropped in my heart. Why don't you teach yourself how to make cuffs and put words, inspiring words on the cuffs that you would have wanted to wear for the last 5 years? Awesome. One day at a time, hope, with God, nothing is impossible. And that's what I did for the next 4, 5, 6 months. Didn't tell anybody. I just put my head down, focused, and taught myself how to make cuffs, and ruined an entire guest bedroom, and zero desire to be an entrepreneur. Did not want an employee. I didn't even really want a business. I just wanted to create. But if I would have seen what was ahead for the next years, I probably would have stopped creating at that moment, because it was probably good that I didn't see how much was getting ready to happen, because I never desired, I thought being an entrepreneur meant crazy amounts of work. And so I just didn't like work, because I'd never found work I liked. But when you find the thing that God has purposed you to do, you don't ever call it work. Because it's a joy, even though it's really hard. So that's the story of how Rustic Cuff got started, from 15 minutes of pain. And I wouldn't change it for anything, even though it aired to 60 million people, because if it would have been a great 12 minutes or 15 minutes, I wouldn't have gone through the pain, wouldn't have emptied the closet, wouldn't have had the desire to fill that closet back up. So that leads us up to the point where I started Rustic Cuff.
Well, I had a couple questions for you, but what you said is so powerful, because you obviously are a believer in God. You were wanting and waiting, and I've been at that point yelling at God, like, why? Yeah. I want answers. Why I'm sitting in my own misery for 5 years. I've been there. But what I think is beautiful is one of the principles that we find in the Word is talking about praying and forgiving those that have hurt us, right? Yeah. And how it heaps ashes on their head. But really what it does, it frees us. You were a captive. Yeah. And I think for so many people that have been burned in a partnership, that have been burned in a business, that outright fail, and somebody tells them that they're failing or uses an unkind word, we can sit in that and get nothing from it. And the other thing that I think is so beautiful is really what Rustic Cuff does, giving, but the inspire, right? The words of inspiration came from the opposite of what you received. You wanted to make sure you were giving people things and putting things in their lives that were truth about them, and not the negativity you'd heard. And I think that's just so powerful.
Yeah, I became to the point where I just felt like Rustic Cuff was this conduit to just pass on. The more we would give away, the more people would buy, and the more we were then able to give away more and more. And the biggest thing in Tulsa was that this community of people, men and women, joined something. I don't even think it was about the bracelet. I think, when you start something, people just want to be a part of something that encourages and inspires. And everything, especially these days, is just not speaking life anymore. And they want to be part of something that speaks life into their life. So it could have been rubber bands. It didn't matter. It was community that would just line up and wait for hours just to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So all along, this really had nothing to do with me. It just was that we were this conduit that things just kept, and it was never mine to keep anyhow. It was a gift that God gave to us, and it just kept flowing. And the minute that we just start holding on to it is the minute that the well dries up. So, I mean, I've learned a heck of a lot just from the failures. I don't even like to call them failures, but through not knowing what to do.
What I like, that stems. I read one of your favorite sayings is you truly can change your world through one kind act at a time. Is that really where that spurred from?
Yeah. When I first filled the closet back with cups. I felt like God told me, I want you to start giving these away to strangers. And I told God, I'll give them to friends, but I'm not going to walk up to strangers. And then God said, go give them to strangers. And then at one point you just got to stop arguing and say, okay, I'll do it. And so I would literally put them on my wrist, random ones. And I would just, when I felt led, would go up to people, even if they didn't look like somebody that would wear cuffs. I would just take them off and say, I feel like I'm supposed to give this company. I literally would just hand them, start learning from people. I mean, all kinds of stories, one person at a time. I still hear stories. People come back and say, you gifted my aunt who was dying of cancer, this cuff, and it's what she clung to. And our whole family was so blessed by that, by what you did for her. And I didn't know she had cancer. I mean, there's so many things, that these stories behind the stories, that when you feel like you're led to the right person, you have no idea what one little bracelet can do. So and to this day, I tell all of the girls that work here and guys, you have the ability to take any cuff at any time you want when you feel led, and you just give it to people. I mean, because you don't know what everybody's story is. Everybody has a story, and you come in at some point on a chapter in their story, and you have this ability to add to one of the sentences in their life story just by giving them a bracelet, by making them feel seen. You can impact their story. And it's a great group of people here, but it's not just here. It's all of the people then that turn around and re-gift to other people. People will come in and buy 5 bracelets and keep 1 and keep 4 in their purse so they can do that same thing. So it catches, it's sort of addicting, actually.
I can see that. No, I love it. Well, I was going to ask you how you inspire. You have 150 employees now?
Now we have about 100. We closed 2 of our showrooms during COVID that we have not reopened. So we have a little over 100.
And I'm assuming the giving, especially from a leadership level, is what helps inspire everybody at your organization.
Yeah, one of the things is if you give them the ability to do it, and then sometimes I just make everybody, I'll give everybody 3 bracelets, and I'll say, by the time you come back tomorrow morning, I want you to give these 3 bracelets away in the course of your day, not up here at the office, but just when you go out in your life, I want you to give these away. And then we're just going to talk about who you felt led to give them to. So it's not comfortable for everybody to do that. But when you mandate it because you write their paycheck, then it forces them to do things outside their comfort zone. And I think that is the joy of being able to run this company, is having people that would do things that they typically would not do. And the more they do it, the easier it becomes for them. But I like dreaming up things to make them feel uncomfortable to go outside their comfort zone. I love that, because it's not just their customers' lives. It's like the people's lives that are working here. That's like if you love them and you're authentic with them and you give them freedom, the loyalty that comes back is tenfold. I worked in corporate America for 11 years, and I clocked in and clocked out. And if you're a minute late, you're called into the supervisor's office. It's very, it's very constricting. And I said, if I ever have a company someday, I didn't want a company, but if I ever did, I want to do the opposite of what has been done to me for 11 years. And I get it, it's corporate America, but I decided to give freedom for people to go pick up their children, to go, and then they don't have to come back. I mean, all kinds of freedoms that you give people where your family is first. And I cannot tell you, Cullen, the loyalty that has come back is, you think you have to hold all these people tightly, but right. when you don't hold them tightly and you trust them, and you still have to weed out, you got to weed out the ones who take advantage of that freedom, but the ones that stay in the team that you're left with, oh gosh, it's so freeing to not have to hold everybody so tightly. So It's,
Well, that's so powerful. You're empowering everybody, but at the same time, Jill, I think what's special, and we do it here at our company too, is you see where they need to get out of their comfort zone because it's going to make their heart better.
yeah.
Those are the things that you mandate. You micromanage the giving.
Yes. Well, then I make them do things like jump from poles and, the high ropes course and all of these things that they wouldn't normally do. And you look back over the years we've done this, and they're different people because they have done things to push themselves past this, this barrier that they've set up for themselves. And I like not just for the employees, I love doing that for anybody who buys a cuff. I like to challenge and just say, what are you not doing today that you're afraid of, but your heart is still drawn to? Let's talk about that. So
we've gone from 2020, now we're 2021. Are you still doing the one new thing a year?
I am.
What is
I am. This year is my favorite, probably almost of all the 41 years I've been doing it. I had COVID in October, and it was a bad bout with COVID. I was hospitalized, and I lost the ability to recall some very common words. In other words, I lost some memory cells, and it was a weird thing that I would be talking to somebody and could not remember, like, what are these called? What is that thing? What is this that you can see better with? Glasses. Like, I couldn't think. And so my hobby was to memorize 3 things a day. So by the end of the year, I will have memorized 1,000 things. So when I meet anybody, I can say, when is your birthday? And I can tell any person I meet what historical event happened on that day, what famous person was born, and what one inspirational quote is attached to that day. So not only has it really helped my memory and exercised my mind, but now I have this great way of interacting with customers. Instead of saying, well, what do you do for a living? I just say, when's your birthday? And then I get to connect with them and tell them that, that Donnie and Marie split up on their birthday. They were no longer a singing duo, or what, it's usually a little bit more important than that. But so I've done 60 so far, and I'm on my way to, well, actually I've done 60 times. I've done 180. So I'm on my way to 1,000. It's a little ambitious, but I'm going to do it.
It's your thing. You're going to get on.
It's my thing.
You did it. You wrote it down. Everybody talks about writing
it down.
And you're a product of that, right? It took a little longer, so you stayed with it because you wrote it down with the Oprah thing. Now you're doing that. I think one of the really interesting things, especially for young professionals, is they see people, and you and I talked about this before the interview. They see people now, so doing their podcast, or you're a motivational speaker now and being on Oprah, but they don't see the journey and they just want the now. But from what you just said, what's so powerful is what we're capable of. And it was just one thing a year, all the things, and you should write a book on that. I know you've already wrote a book on giving, but just write a book. It would be so cool on if you just focus on one thing and do a self-evaluation and ask God, what do you want from me this year? And you've done that with excellence, and you do it every year. Look what 40 years looks like. That's inspiring.
The hard part about the younger generation, and it makes me sound old when I use those 2 words together, younger generation, is that they see people on social media go from 0 to 5 million followers, and they think that's so easy. Well, gosh, there wasn't much work. They just did it from their home with a video camera. And granted, that definitely sometimes happens, but the grit and all of the things that go into doing something really with excellence, you have to put in the time. I tell my kids, you have to be so excellent at what you do that the world can't ignore you. I know it's a quote, but there's no way, if you do this halfway, you're going to be average. You will always be average. So if your job literally is to take out the trash, whether it's at home or where you're working, if you do it with such excellence, I promise you the world won't ignore you. But what they tend to think is, I will do that when I get to a bigger status or a bigger position. And so they don't do with excellence the very small things that they've been given, and they wait. But when they get up here, if they haven't practiced it right here, They haven't formed the habits and the patterns that they need to do this with excellence. So I tell people, if you really want to do something, go find that company that does that and offer your services at the very lowest level.
Amen.
Start, if you want to be part of New Wave, because they do amazing IT, and they're not hiring, go offer your services to maybe clean the office twice a week, 3 times a week, just to be around them, because they will see that what you do is with excellence. And even if they don't have a position, they'll make one for you. I had a Zumba teacher coming to do Zumba here 3 times a week for all of my employees during like 10 o'clock for 3 days a week. They could do Zumba. This girl came with, and a Zumba teacher with excellence in communicating with me in everything she did, that after 3 months, I brought her up to my office and I said, I have no position, but I don't care, because I'm hiring you, because will you please come work for me, because I have to have you. I don't even know what, and right now, she is one of the most amazing, above excellence communication specialist here, which is that's not really even a title, but how was I to know that as a Zumba teacher? She was just doing what she did with excellence. That would be my biggest encouragement to anybody who says, I can't break into the field I want. Go be a servant in that field and obsess over it to learn everything you can, and do it with so much fervor and excellence that somebody's got to call you up to their office and say, I have to have you.
Oh, come on. That's wonderful. Well, I'll tell you, really looking at it, I think and we were talking about young professionals, go look at anybody that's never managed money that wins the lottery. And their life just goes, it's like a train wreck. And it's because they've been giving something they don't have any skills in, right? And it's not really the fact that you're wonderful on a podcast, you're a wonderful motivational speaker, Jill. You were guided there. What I know that every young professional doesn't like to hear is it's all the practice, and it's the daily things, the little bitty daily things that bring the excellence when it's time to bring the excellence. And if you don't have skills, it'll absolutely wreck you. And I agree. If I could tell any young professional starting out to do anything, it'd be identify, like you did, where do you want to be? Go be around the people that are excellent in that field and just give your time away. But also finances, communication, any skill you're looking to learn, go sit with leaders that are excellent in those, prepare questions ahead of time. Leaders give. If you call them and say, hey, I'll take you to lunch. Can I have 15 minutes and ask you 5 questions because I want this skill and you're amazing? Give you the time. You just got to ask for it, and you've got to be humble and acknowledge that you don't have the skill yet.
I think also there's so much information out now that we didn't have. Well, you're younger than I am, but when we were growing up, that you can listen to. I instead of my girls, they're not an actual job right now, but I will literally pay them to listen to. Part of an allowance is if they listen to certain podcasts that I send them and read certain books that I send them. I want them to be educated and know this, because so much of the world is educating them in the things that feel, then they're not hungry for the other stuff. But you are so right. That there is an entire mentality right now that I can do this without going through the hard work. And you just have to go in with a humble spirit and be prepared to work. I don't want to follow somebody who hasn't been through something to get to where they are. Like, great leaders have gone through great trials. And it's hard to listen to speakers sometimes. I don't want to hear about just your successes. It's amazing, but I want to know how you overcame something so great that made you so great as a leader. That inspires me.
Oh, me too. What I like that you're giving ideas to your kids about what you want them to learn, because there is so much out there. On one of the podcasts I've done previously, a good key point, and I've run into this a lot, was overconsumption with no action. And so everybody's consuming these books. And and I think this is a really cool topic for you, because you've been laser focused on one thing a year. Right. So can you talk to everybody about what that looks like, and not falling captive to just reading 47 books in 2 weeks? Yeah. Right? And actually taking action on those things.
Yeah, it's the execution of it that is where we fall down, because it's easy to listen and hear. But then when you don't do, it means nothing to have just heard. So the biggest thing that I've started, or that I've encouraged my whole team to do, is that I ask them to choose 3 things for the year or quarterly, 3 things that they can execute. What's the big goal? Do you want to lose 20 pounds? What are 3 things that you can do to get that done? Well, I can walk 3 miles a day. I can, eat 1,500 calories, whatever those 3 things are. And then I give everybody 3 bracelets, and I call it the power of 3. So you have the big thing you want to do, but you don't know how to execute it. And every day, this stands for my 3 miles. When you walk 3 miles, we switch it over to this wrist. So you have this feeling of accomplishment, and you know that you did it. And so you don't go to sleep until you have transferred all 3 bracelets over. And there is the execution right there. So last September 1st, my goal was I wanted to do 100 push-ups a day. Why? I don't know, because I wasn't even exercising, but I just did. Yeah. And I had one bracelet on there, and there's always a little symbol that somehow represents what it is I'm doing. But at the end of my 100 push-ups, I would transfer this. And it would take me throughout the day to do them. I would go to bed at night, would not go to bed at night until that was executed. So I'm holding myself accountable with this actual, people write it down. You have lists and stuff, but sometimes you leave the list at the office. Here, it's this power of 3. And at the end of 4 months, from September to December, that was however many days times 100 push-ups minus COVID. And all because I would not go to bed. One of these, Kellen, is a shell. This one is a shell, and it stands for every single day I have to clean out 1 shelf or drawer in my house, because everybody says, I'm going to spring clean, and you don't. I will not go to sleep until something, 1 shelf, drawer, something is cleaned out. By the end of the year, I will have cleaned out 365 shelves or garage pantries, whatever. That way I don't feel overwhelmed by this goal I have, because each day I'm just doing 3 little things to accomplish this one big goal. So I did implement that here at the office. And some people's, their power of 3, the first thing was they wanted to get down on their knees every single day before the day started. And as soon as they did that, they transferred it over. And one guy he wanted to reach out to somebody in his contact list that he hadn't talked to for a year, and call them or send them a text, a different person every single day. So it not just affects you, but the people that you're doing these things for. But you have to have the actual reminder to actually execute it, or else you can talk all day long about losing weight or about doing nice things for people. But until you just say, daily, I'm going to do this. Not monthly, like
accountability. That is beautiful.
Yeah. Every single day.
Yeah.
You can't miss a day. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Plus, I have these ugly little paper clips, and all the little things that make the difference for things. For this call, I try to set up this ugly little ring light for like 2 hours, and it needed to be just right, because the sun was coming, whatever. But it was, I have paper clips, and I make my little list, and I move my paper clips throughout the day. I like the bracelet thing better though.
I'm going to send you 3 bracelets. I'm going to send you 3. Well, because you carry it with you. And you're reminded, actually, this feels really good. So if at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've already accomplished one of those. You have this sense of, it's a little bit like crossing it off your list, but you don't take this necessarily with you everywhere you go. And I heard John Maxwell talk one time about what is the tree in your backyard. Everybody has something you want to accomplish. Picture it like a tree. If you go out every single day and you take an axe and you hit that tree 5 times, so what's going to happen eventually? Tree, it's going to happen if you just take that axe every day. He says, I don't miss on my birthday. I don't miss because it's a holiday. I do the same things every single day for that thing I want to accomplish. It never misses a day. And if you do, you just keep moving forward because you're further than where you were at the beginning of the year. But people wait till the last minute, till the week before the wedding to lose the weight. Whereas if you would have just been doing just a mile every day, just 1 mile a day, you would be that many more miles walked at this point instead of waiting right before. But listen, it's taken me 51 years to figure this out. I mean, I don't know how to get it in the head of a 20-year-old because it's taken me this long to really do it.
Hopefully that's what we're doing right here, right? That's why we're on this is, again, there's things that we figure out at certain points in life and everybody goes, man, 10 years ago, if I would have done this, I would have been, well, let's get, like you said, give. We're giving to other people. I love it. And I also love that if I'm walking around, I'm not a small guy. I'm on video camera, about 235 pounds with bracelets. I enjoy people asking me what's up with that. Why? And it's so powerful to talk to them about it. I've got a guy in the office that was walking around, and that's one of the things we do too, is we don't complain. We don't walk around and complain. And he's wonderful. And, but he was saying, well, I just don't need to eat that. And I heard it like 3 times. And I said his name, I walked over and said, so what don't you need to eat? And he told me, I said, so are you trying to lose weight? Like, why are you verbally saying this again? And he already knew because of kind of how we lead what was about to happen. I went over, but I like the bracelet thing better, and got a blue sticky note and stuck it down. And I said, do you really want to lose weight? And he said, yes. So every time you put something in your mouth, whatever you put in your mouth, just write it down. I said, it's so annoying to write one cookie or a bite of a cookie or drink a soda down that you'll quit doing the little things you don't need to do.
Yeah. Kellen, you just got a job marketing for Weight Watchers with that shtick that you just did.
Let's do it.
I mean,
I'm all about, so on that, like the differences, right? I love what you're doing because of the challenge came up. Well, COVID came up, and what nobody was talking about is our God-given immune system needs to be right. We can't give ourselves cancer with soda and junk food. We all know we do it. And some people, unfortunately, are held captive to it because they have emotional things going on in their life, and it provides comfort. And so they need strong people to come alongside them. But I partnered with a local a gym that was doing boot camps. I got 15 guys involved. I think they've lost 600 pounds together now.
Wow.
Right? But community and commitment. And they just committed to showing up together. Yeah. And what they do, they change what they're putting in their body, more water, more sleep, some vitamins, and they lost weight. And one of my buddies lost, man, it was amazing. His name's Curtis. He's an amazing leader, and that's the one area of discipline he didn't have. He's 240 pounds. He's 390. He's 280 right now, I think.
Wow.
It's on my Facebook. He and I went out. Do you know Bull in the Alley?
Yeah, I love Bull in the Alley.
So when he broke 300, we went and got one of those big steaks to celebrate.
If I lose 20 pounds, will you take me to get a steak to celebrate?
Yes. If you want to lose 20 pounds, I'll hold you accountable.
Okay. You know, it is, I totally agree. It is community. But everybody says tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow because today I'll live and I'll eat, and then tomorrow I'll do it. But I used to only start on a Monday and only start on the first of a month. And Monday needed to be the first of the month. And now I realize I can start something amazing at 3:00 in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. I don't have to wait until then. But if you don't start, you will never, I mean, I know you go to Life Church, and I love what Craig Groeschel said recently about if you don't like what you're reaping, sow different seeds. If you're not getting anywhere, we'll sow the seed of doing one different thing every single day. And it works, and you know it works, so why not do it? But you have to have people that you're accountable to. It makes all the difference.
When you've got to tell everybody, Jill, because that's what's cool is you catch somebody saying, oh, next month, and you look them in the eye and say, Rustic Cuff started at 2 a.m.
That's good.
Right? That's when you did it. You said at 2 a.m. I got up and decided. I made the decision. It can happen in a moment.
And that wasn't even I say preach on that. That wasn't even the first of a month or a Monday. I mean, you're right, 2 a.m. You just have to do it. You just have to like step out of the boat, and you just got to even when it doesn't seem possible because you have so much weight to lose or so far to go to where you want to be, you will, like law school. I didn't start law school until I was 29, and all the kids in law school were 22 right out of undergrad. But I waited. And I almost didn't go because I thought I'll be 32 by the time I graduate. But I would have still turned 32 and just not had a law degree.
Right.
So your time is going past anyhow. why it's never too late. Time's going to pass. Why not go in 6 months from now, be where you want to be instead of 6 months from now being exactly where you are today?
Well, like Curtis, so when I hear somebody say, well, you know how, because maybe they've had, because regardless, you're taking action. You're either taking action the right way or the wrong way. So he took massive action in that wrong way in one area of his life. And it's that thought, right? Do you know how much effort this is going to take? And for him, it's like, but do you know how big your testimony is?
Yes.
Because
so
you're
good. I love
people.
Yeah. Somebody like that can preach all day long on focus. And it is the biggest reason why we don't get the things done that our hearts desire is because we have no focus. We are distracted by every little thing that seems better to us in the moment. So good for Curtis.
Podcast on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, so one final question. I know I love to read, and you were talking about how you're bestowing certain books on your kids. If your house was burning down and you could only grab books and read them again, what would they be?
I have 3. One is The Circle Maker. I don't know if you've read that by Mark Batterson. I love that. Another one is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I have read that.
I love it. Yeah, and I have the book, but I downloaded it so I could listen to it. I saw yesterday, it's not books that change our lives, it's paragraphs and certain sentences that change our lives. So I love to just highlight. And then the other one is a really small book. I have it here. It's called it's The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it.
I read it. I mean, it's so small, and it's not necessarily about sales, but it can be for anybody. It is a really, really powerful book. I could read this every single day. Now, the Bible, that goes without saying. I would get my Bible that I've had since I was 5 years old. But yeah, those are the books. And then of course my photo books and my baby books and all that. But those are the books that I think are just powerful. Every now and then you find a really powerful book. What's the answer to that question for you?
Man, so I'm in a season where I've actually blocked off. So this year I blocked off a lot of books and I'm just in the Word. I'm reading through Matthew right now. But in the past, man, there's several. It's really hard to decide. Today Matters by John Maxwell was, I think it's the seasons. So I have 3 or 4, but Today Matters by John Maxwell for anybody that feels out of order or can't get those little habits right. And then, you know how you were talking about you can't remember glasses earlier?
You can't remember the book.
Yeah, there's a specific book, and it's about finding your why. And I'll post it on this. I did it in another podcast.
Simon
Sinek? No, he does.
It is. What's that book?
He's got 3 or 4 amazing books.
What's the why book that he? Okay, anyhow.
It's from
Michael. We're both old.
It's from Michael Hyatt, and it's really
good. The one I just bought one of his books. We're old. You see that? We can't remember. But if your house burns down and you don't get those favorite books, I will buy those books for you that you didn't collect from your house because you couldn't remember which ones were your favorite.
So I pulled up my phone because Living Forward by Michael Hyatt is a phenomenal book, and it has massive action. So you're called to take massive action, and it's great because you hear from a CEO that was, he was crushed, and he was kind of like your story. He was empty. And so then it all fell apart, and he goes and finds his why and finds his buckets. So he has family, he has a life. He's not dedicating his life to work, but you picture yourself at your funeral and what you want each of your buckets to say about you. And you determine the power sentence around them and how you're going to live your life accordingly. That's amazing. The Traveler's Gift,
great.
The best books I've ever read too.
Okay. I don't know that book.
Again, it's a CEO that, it'd be good for the pandemic. So it's a CEO or a high-level executive that's climbed the corporate ladder forever. They've got a big house. They've overbought. He loses his corporate job. goes without a job. It goes through the struggle of trying to find a job. He's working at like Ace Hardware, and then the owner is micromanaging him, and he lost his insurance, his kidneys or tonsils out. And it's just this whole emotional moment. Like he can't even afford to pay for his child's medical care anymore.
Wow.
And he gets in his car and just puts his foot on the gas and spins out, and then ends up in front of Abraham Lincoln, ends up in front of the Archangel Gabriel, right? And they're in the most pivotal moments in history for those people. And he gets given one gift by like 12 different individuals to carry him forward in life. It's a really good book.
Okay. I'll have to get that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then for men, Maximize Manhood.
Okay.
Is a great book for any man in your life that just feels lost. Maximize Manhood.
Okay.
Other than the Bible, best book I've ever read.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I shall have to get all three.
Well, and Jill, we covered a lot. I know people are going to want to look up all your YouTube videos and really, there's a lot. I hope everybody listens to the whole thing. You gave a lot of spectacular advice in this, but if somebody wants to contact you, because there's social platforms, there's email, what's your preferred method of communication?
They can email me. There are too many ways to get a hold of somebody, and I drop the ball. Facebook messages, cannot get to them, and it's sad and embarrassing when it's just all spread out. So I prefer and would love to hear from anybody with anything. Jill@rusticcuff.com.
Okay, perfect. Jill@rusticcuff.com. Well, thank you, everybody. Kellen with New Wave Solutions. Jill, thank you for giving.
Thank you, Kellen. It was a really enjoyable hour. I so enjoyed it. And I love getting to hear how you are impacting so many men's lives as well as all your employees. So thank you for doing this podcast.
It's our why.
Yeah, your why.